But if you're a Native American on the reservations and that's your only really source of revenue, do you think that some policymakers will take a look at that? It's, again, cutting off, you think about, you have 2,800 workers and then you have to let go 1,900. And the only really revenue on the reservation is gaming for a lot of historical reasons that we don't need to go into. Hey, this is Henry Sanders back with another episode of Real Talk. I want to thank our sponsors at Park Bank. Thank you for everything that you're doing for us, keeping the ship going. We have someone actually extremely important here today, especially with all the news going on with the CARE Act and PPP Program and all the funding. We have the a regional administrator for the SBA, the U.S. Small Business Administration. And for you people who don't know what that means, he's the highest ranking guy in the Midwest from the Small Business Administration. And he's in a very important position, politically appointed, right? So let me introduce you to my friend Rob. How you doing, Rob?
Pretty good, sir. Pretty good. Sitting here in Columbus, Ohio, fielding media interviews.
Well, we won't hold that against you, Columbus guy. They have a high school football team there. We hear a high school basketball team called the Buckeyes or something like that, right?
They are by far the greatest college football team in the universe.
They're actually college. I thought they were a high school team. That's good to know. Well, hey, Rob, thanks for taking time for us today. There was some news that the PPP program or the CARE Act is out of funding. Can you give us a little more insight about what's going on with that?
Certainly. So the PPP, or which is referred to as the Paycheck Protection Program, Congress 3 weeks ago allocated $349 billion. And again, that's $349 billion for the SBA to guarantee lenders to lend to small businesses and nonprofits across the country. The program opened up a little under 2 weeks ago. And as of 10 a.m. this morning, we were met our appropriation. Just for terms of your listenership, in regards to that, the SBA did more loans in 2 weeks than it did in 14 years combined. And it did more applications in the PPP than it did for every application since the founding of the Small Business Administration in 1963.
Wow. What I'm hearing from a lot of the small businesses is that they think that a lot of the money went to the big businesses, right, and didn't get to the small businesses. We actually had Senator Tammy Baldwin on last week, and she actually had a concern saying that she felt that a lot of the funding was going to establish relationships with the banks, and there's a lot of people being missed. What's your feel on that?
So just to kind of talk about the terms of the loan and then to address it's got a $2 million cap on it, and the interest rate, it's 100 basis points or 1%. And it's not a loan in a traditional sense that it's somebody that are amortized over 10 years. It's a 2-year term. As part of the loan, it is a forgivable loan as long as some compliance measures are met. If 75% of the loan that is provided to the small business is used for payroll and other payroll associated expenses like healthcare and the other things that a small business or nonprofit pays for their employees, that portion along with the other 25% is forgiven. And within that is an 8-week period that in the loan requires folks to be on payroll for 8 weeks. Now, there is some heartburn on that, and I can go into more detail about that I can describe for the audience. But to answer your question specifically on the relationships with the lenders, traditionally the SBA before the COVID disaster or crisis We had about 3,200 lenders that had a relationship with the SBA, whether they were what quote unquote active SBA lenders or what we would call inactive SBA lenders. Combined, that's about 3,200. We now have over 5,000 SBA active lenders for the PPP program. So we had lenders like Bank of America who never had been an SBA lender because SBA was kind of viewed as like a niche type thing for lending institutions that now were doing SBA PPP loans. Additionally, fintechs got involved like Intuit, like PayPal. Additionally, Cabbage, which was kind of viewed as a secondary type lender, a lender of last resort, that have begun giving these PPP loans. It was also geared towards credit unions and community banks. To give you an example, the SBA normally uses a system called E-Tran, and again, a lot of this is insider baseball. But when the PPP program was passed, there was a completely new program developed by Amazon, and we had a lot of public-private partnerships with the SBA, but Amazon developed a program called the SBA Connect Gateway, and it simplified the application process for lending institutions that were not your traditional SBA lenders. So these community banks, these credit unions, and even bigger banks that really had never really had a relationship with us, it simplified the process for them in entering in applications from their customers into the SBA system. So of course, we can't meet everyone, we can't service everyone, but we did go above and beyond to make sure that we certainly serviced, our community banks, our credit unions, and then also the fintechs, as well as our current SBA lenders and new SBA lenders that maybe have a larger footprint than most lending institutions that are out there.
Well, that's impressive. 3,200 to 5,000. That's quick.
Yes.
And usually government doesn't move that fast. That's interesting to hear that you guys move that fast. Do you think that there will be another PPP program? Because I talked to a lot of people. 8 weeks is only 8 weeks. I mean, that's fast. And obviously, I think the real big impact of this is going to hit people a month from now. So do you think there'll be another program that comes out from the? I know it's not up to you.
Yeah. And Henry, looking into my crystal ball, I mean, obviously, the president last Friday called for $250 billion along with some folks in Congress. I do know that's in discussion to up our appropriation by $250 billion. It is of my mindset that there is certainly a need out there from what we're hearing from the Small Business Administration that there needs to be additional funds appropriated for the SBA. So I do know Congress is working on that. I will tell you that though this has been a very successful program and certainly the SBA has done above and beyond the expectations in the PPP program, more can be done and we can do more. If we do get a second round of funding, I believe it will be much smoother because again, we've gotten a lot more lenders into the system and we'll be able to pump the money faster into the small business community and the nonprofit community. The one hangup that I do know in Congress, which is being debated as we speak, is more guidance when it comes to who can qualify, who can't qualify. Know that this bill was done in a very hurried fashion because we just needed to get the money on the street. The SBA went as fast as it could when it came to rulemaking, getting the interim final rule done, which is the guidance for the program. And again, we did it in a week. Normally programs like this for the SBA and in really any government entity takes 6 months to a year to implement. We did it in 1 week. So
again, unbelievable. That's unbelievable. So I have a couple questions for you. So one, I've heard from my friends who are small business owners, even nonprofit leaders, who are saying unemployment actually is better for their employees if they take the unemployment, if they're under $50,000 or something like that. I think that was the number they said, that there's more of an incentive for them, the employees, not to come back to work because unemployment, they get paid more for being unemployed than they would coming back. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. Actually, I will use even a personal example in my own personal life. My stepmother, same situation. She is actually making more money on unemployment because they offered that extra kicker in the unemployment compensation, which actually brought her above what she was making, a regular salary in her job. So the question is, if you're somebody in that position, are you going to want to turn around and say, oh, well, I'll go back to work, give up more money in the unemployment compensation and having to go back to work and add it into that? Obviously, if you're somebody that has children and you have to pay for daycare or any other type of those expenses, that's just more money out of your pocket. So certainly I've heard that from the small business community, and certainly it's a concern. It does need to be addressed by our policymakers. It is something that I do know that is on their radar. And then additionally, with the guidance that we have put out so far from the Small Business Administration when it came to this 8-week period of once the small business owner or nonprofit gets the disbursement of funds from the PPP program from the lender, there's some concern there is, okay, I have to pull these people that were employed by me back onto my payroll, but I can't open up my doors for business. Like there's, like an example would be like a restaurant. There's some states they literally cannot open their doors right now, but yet they're getting this money that's being deposited. And under our rules, it says, hey, you got to open up, you got to pay these, or not necessarily open up, but you got to pay these folks. So the question is, do you pay them and they just sit at home? Or can you wait until the doors open? So that there needs to be a little more guidance when it comes to that aspect. That we haven't been equipped yet to really pull that all together. What I will tell you is that every day there's more and more guidance coming out from us, from Treasury, and then obviously with Congress looking at a second round of funding. I think there's going to be more meat put on the bones. Again, this was a rushed program. You could not think of every scenario possible. There was no way to look in a crystal ball and say, okay, this quarantine's only going to last 6 weeks or 7 weeks. It was a best guess scenario. So again, it's half baked. I think when Congress comes back, I think as we walk down the street a little more with what's going on, it's going to become an even better program.
Yeah, it's still government working that fast. That's still amazing, and
it's a miracle.
You're literally building the airplane in the air, right? Like you're literally building an airplane in the air. And so another question I have for you here, Rob, is that we have a big audience for our Native Americans, and we just talked to one tribe today, and they were saying that they had to lay off basically. They have 2,800 workers, and they had to lay off 1,900 of them. And they were saying that I asked them specifically where they could have access to this program, and they were saying that only if you have more than 30% revenue from gaming, you cannot you're not eligible for this program, which makes sense if you're MGM Grand or one of those big casinos. But if you're a Native American on the reservations and that's your only really source of revenue, do you think that some policymakers will take a look at that? It's again, like cutting off. You think about you have 2,800 workers, and then you have to let go 1,900, and the only really revenue on the reservation is gaming for a lot of historical reasons that we don't need to go into.
That scenario was actually put in an FAQ by us as well as, and you're actually the very first person to ask me this question, so I'm impressed. But it is a specific outset in the statute of the CARES Act that the tribal companies are actually eligible. And then in the rulemaking, we were the ones that set the 30% rule between SBA and Treasury. I do believe there's probably going to be more honing of that. And I'm actually trying to find it right now, but that is actually an accurate statement because they fall in with the I think it's a 50C13, if my memory serves me right. They actually fall in that exception in the statute. But you are correct. It is a 30% rule. The goal of that was to kind of carve out the MGMs of the world and
totally makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
But I do agree with you. It probably needs to be revisited for some of the tribal groups that are in Wisconsin and Michigan and across the country.
Yeah, Midwest. I mean, they're hurting. And I get it. Look, some people are against gaming. I don't gamble myself. I never have. But if this is driving their economy, I mean, there has to be something in it, right?
No, absolutely.
So before I let you go, Rob, what are your biggest concerns right now moving forward, and what's giving the biggest headaches right now? And then what are you most optimistic about moving forward?
Well, what I would say is that, there are a lot of people hurting right now. And we know that the SBA and I know a lot of our partners that are out there are small business development centers, state government, local governments, working round the clock to serve the community and help prop up these small businesses and nonprofits. It's 50% of our workforce in the United States are deemed in this small business category. So truly, the economic recovery is going to be the economic recovery of the small business world and the nonprofit world. So I personally am very concerned because I feel that the monies that we have put on the street, though it was a massive effort, we need to do more. And there needs to be more provided so that we can service more of these small businesses and certainly get them the money so that we can get them over this crisis and come out of this an even stronger country economically, as a society, all of the above, so that we can get over this and certainly learn some hard lessons from this as well. So that's one of my concerns. I'm very hopeful because I think both parties are going to come together. And normally, as you know, if both parties are upset and both parties are happy, you probably got some very good legislation done.
It's called compromise.
It's called compromise. And that's a good thing. I think there's going to be something done, and it's going to be good. It's going to be good for this country. What I would tell your listeners, if you have any more questions, go to SBA.gov. There are plenty of resources out there. Additionally, there are states and local governments that are doing a lot of things for small business. There are opportunities with CDBG funds, other things that I know cities and counties are offering. There is help available for any one of your listeners that owns a small business or a nonprofit. So feel free to certainly, it's all on the web and educate yourself about it. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but if you go to SBA.gov and some other governmental websites, it's pretty trustworthy. So with that, know that the SBA, we have district offices throughout the country. We have 68 district offices. For your listeners in Wisconsin, we have an office in Milwaukee. We also have an office in Madison. And in Illinois, we have an office in downtown Chicago, as well as in Springfield, Illinois. And you can go to SBA.gov and put in your zip code and find them. But feel free to call us anytime. We are working 7 days a week right now. And we may not have an exact answer for you, but we will find you an answer and certainly return a call. We are totally in customer service mode. So please know anything and everything we can do for your listeners, feel free to reach out to us.
Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for everything doing. Our prayers are with you, my friend. This is a tough time for you and for the government, and you guys, SBA is right into the eye of the storm. So congrats, keep going what you're doing. And hey, go Badgers, go Buckies.
Go Buckeyes. All right, thank you, Henry.
Take care. Have a good one. Thank you.
You too.
Thanks for another episode of Real Talk. We'll see you next time.